Okay, to kind of go back to the last subject we talked about, I'm going to go ahead and take out the ln on that, and I'm going to go ahead and run this. And again, when I do, we're going to see hello world and how are you are basically on the same line with no space. Now, there's a couple things I could do here. Number one, I could go ahead and add a space behind hello world. And when I save this and run it, or at least have a space between those two phrases. But if I really truly wanted to go on a separate line, we do have, if you look on the bottom of page 37, there are common escape sequences, so different things we can do, and they all pretty much start with a backslash. So if I put in a backslash and I put in an N right here, that says go to a new line. So if I were to save this and run it, we're going to see that it's going to basically put how are you on the next line. So the /n will not print. It's a non-printable character basically, and it says go to the next line. If I were to make that a T, that is a tab. So it's like typing in hello world and hitting the tab key. And if I run it, we see that we have basically the length of a tab stop between those two words. I can do a /b for backslash, I can do a /r for return, a // for backslash, a backslash single quote will cause so I could actually do something like this, apostrophe s, and that will actually put a apostrophe in there. So if I had a double quote, and if I try to put a single quote in there, it won't let me. But if I put a backslash in there like that, and again I'm going to put then a /n behind that, and I were to save it first and then I hit run, it's going to say hello worlds, how are you? So the /apostrophe puts in an apostrophe, the /n puts in a new line. So again, some different ways to use the printing capabilities. Now the next section, we get into section 2.3, starts talking about variables and literals. And variables are those things that we can go ahead and add to our code and actually take a phrase, a letter, whatever we want to use there, and assign it to some data. So basically, let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and bring in. Now, I want to demonstrate how to bring in an existing project. So to do that, I click on File, I click New. I click File, I click Import. I want to import an existing, and it's under General, and there's existing projects into the workspace. So I click that, I click Next, and now I'm going to select the file folder. So all those file folders that we downloaded, the zip file, and after we unzip them, we can now use those. We can bring them into Java. So I click Browse. I then go to wherever you happen to bring those in at. Again, this is, don't look at my screen, just go to the screen where you put yours. Could be in a data folder, could be wherever you basically put these. So don't put them in the workspace. Don't unzip them and put them in the workspace. Put them in a separate folder somewhere in your data. I moved them to my SkyDrive, mid-state, and source files, and chapter 2, and I just remembered. We don't have any projects in those folders. Here's what we have. We just have the Java files. So here's what we're going to do instead. I'm going to click File, New, Java Project. I'm going to call this chapter, again uppercase, chapter 2 dash, and we'll call it 7. I click finish, and now I have a chapter 2-7. I expand that. Again, always make sure we put a package in there. Do a new package. I'm just going to call this example dot chapter 2-7. Oh, can't put any dashes, sorry. No dashes, no periods, no special characters. I'm going to put 2, can I put underscore 7? Yep, underscores are okay. I go ahead and click finish. I have that, and now here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Explorer, and I'm going to go to where that file is at. Midstate 13 source files, chapter 2, and what I want is the variable.java. Scroll down, there's variable.java. I click and drag that to my example package. Drop it in there. It says copy files, and now when I expand that, it's got variable.java. Now when we do that, if you remember, here's my hello world. It's got this package statement. Well, that package statement is now missing from that code. So if I double click on it to open it up, it comes up. Now here, let's take a look at some different error codes, different things we can look at. Whenever we see this light bulb with a red X on it, that is telling us something. It says, I don't know what to do here. Now a lot of times we can point to it and it tells us the declare package does not match the expected package. So if I single click on it, it comes up and says, hey, I got some hints here. I can go ahead and add the package declaration for you, or I can move the variable.java to a different package. Well, I'm going to go ahead and double click this first one, add the package declaration for me, and when I do, look at that, it goes ahead and adds the package declaration. Our error goes away, and I can go ahead and save this. And sure enough, we now have a valid Java program. So again, I created my project, I created my package, I went ahead and dragged that .java file to the package, went ahead and went in and I clicked on the error routine, and it told me, gave me a hint, says, hey, I will add that for you, that declaration to the package, and did it, and now we're good to go. So now let's take a look at this. So here we have our public static void main. Here I've got int. Now what is an int? Well, an int is an integer. Okay, it's basically different data types. Trying to see in the book, yeah, if you look over on page 45, it talks about the different data types. Okay, we have a byte, B-Y-T-E, we have a short, we have an int, we have a long, we have a float, we have a double. Those are the main ones. There's some others, but those are the main ones we're going to deal with in this particular chapter. A byte is an integer. Now an integer means no decimal places. So it is an integer in the range of -128 to +127. A short is, and a byte is literally only 1 byte long. A short is 2 bytes long, and it basically goes from -32,767 or 68 all the way up to 32,767. So if you need numbers in that range, use a short. An int is an integer, but it's 4 bytes, and it goes way up into, it looks like the billions or trillions. And a long is 8 bytes long, and it goes even higher, and it's again an integer data type. So an integer is a byte, short, int, or long. Depending on the number range you want, that's basically you'll pick one of those. The most popular is int. That's probably the one that's used most of the time. Again, an int is always going to take up 4 bytes. Now if we need a decimal place, we're going to use a float or a double. If you got small numbers, use a float. Really large numbers use a double. A double is probably used most of the time. Float is 4 bytes. A double is 8 bytes. Okay. So with that being said, to declare it, again, we always use lowercase for declaration and for variables names. So in this case, I say int value. Now value is now a variable. It's basically a name we gave the program. That we didn't come. That's just a name we gave it. I could have called this V. I could have called it number. I could have called it basically anything. But the point about a variable name is make it descriptive. If you're trying to do a student count, maybe try to count the number of students in a group, call it student, CNT. Okay? Call it something that it makes sense. So in this case, I've declared a new variable called value, and it's an int data type. We just give the abbreviation of int. Now, what does value have in it right now? We just declared it. Well, with the int data type, it defaults to 0. So right now, value has 0 in it. We come down here, and now I say value equals 5. I've now taken the integer 5 and put it into the variable value. I say sys out print the value is. Now notice it's a print, it's not a print line. Sys out print line value. So it's going to print the value is. Notice we have a space behind the is, and then it's going to print value, and what it's going to print is the data that is inside value. And then the ln moves the cursor to the next line down. So I go ahead and do a right click on variable. I click run as. I click Java application. And it says the value is 5. So we declared a variable called value, has an integer data type, int. I go ahead and reassign value to a new value of 5, and then I go ahead and print it out. Okay. Now this is an int data type. That means it's integer, no decimal places. So if I were to type in 5.2 and I were to save this, you'll notice right away I've got a red squiggly line. Whenever you see a red squiggly line, that says you have an error. Notice my little light bulb with the red X shows up over here. If I point to it and click on it, it says add a cast to int or change the type value to double. Okay, so it's given us 2 solutions to fix this problem. But we haven't covered cast yet, so we're not going to basically worry about that. But I could go ahead and say change the type to double, and that would fix it there. So again, I'm trying to use a decimal place with an integer data type. Let me remove that. Okay, so that is a variable. So now a literal is a value that the book says a literal is a value that is written in code of a program. Literals are commonly assigned to variables or displayed. So here we have int. Well, let's take a look at the code. So let me go ahead and bring it in. And this is literals. And I can just drag it into the same package. It's not that big of a deal. Copy it in. I now have literals. Now again, remember, we're always going to see the red X. I have to double click on it. And I'll click on the light bulb and it says add the package declaration. I go ahead and double click that. I now have the correct declaration for my package. And here I have int apples, apples equals 20, sys out print line, today we sold plus apples plus bushels of apples. Wow, what's going on there? Well, what we've done is right here. Now I have a variable called apples, and I'm assigning apples the number 20. Now the number 20 is not a variable. It is literally a number. Otherwise